Hello, Mr. Adrian Vallis, yoga instructor, author, personal development coach, husband, and lover of nature. Welcome to Auntie Hour.
Oh, hello, lovely. Hello, beautiful. How are you? Thank you for having me at your podcast here today.
You're very welcome. Do you have your drink with you?
I do have my cuppa right here.
What are you drinking?
Lately, I've been on to coffee, like 1 cup a day.
Okay, so you've been drinking the coffee. I thought you'd have a little bit of cheeky tweaker in there.
Oh, no, honey, we don't drink hard water, they call it here around here, hard water.
So in Romania, tweaker is a homemade kind of alcoholic beverage. So you
Correct.
don't drink alcohol. Why not? Why didn't you drink alcohol at your own wedding? Who are you?
That's $1 million question. Well, there's many reasons why I don't drink alcohol anymore and why I haven't particularly drunk at my wedding. You see, because I grew up in an environment where alcohol was left and right, up and down, top and center. I grew up with an alcoholic father.
Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up in bars. So to me, it was natural. I started drinking when I was about, I don't know, 12, 13 years old. I started drinking and smoking. So by the time I was 25, I was a proper addict. I
Yeah.
was, I was, and because of my extreme ADHD, I would drink everything all at once. I would be the first one to show the party, last one standing, you know?
Can I ask you, what do you mean by you like grew up in bars?
Well, when I was a teenager, yeah, not even teenager, younger than teenage, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, 14. My dad, uh, whenever he would come back home, he would take me with him down the pub, you know? And I would just be hanging around there while they were drinking beer. I would sip on Coke and sweets.
Yeah. So I guess that was your kind of normality. That was the environment that you was about. So when you got to 14 and 15, why was it just the cool thing to do? It was the done thing to do?
Well, yeah, of course. I would, because I would be a teenager. We'd all started smoking at the time, all in school, hiding in toilets and in the parks and in the gardens and behind the house, to have a little smoke because that would make us look cool. We're like the cool kids, you know. Yeah, oh, you smoke. Oh, yeah, you're a grown up now. What's next? You're growing a little bit of a mustache, you know.
Yeah.
So
So let's carry on this journey, on this drinking journey. So you carried on, you're 18, 19. What was the height of it when you was like, what was you drinking? What was your relationship like when it was at the peak? Like, describe that time to me.
So I think my peak, to be honest with you, I had it both when I was living in Cyprus and in London. In London was more connected to drugs, but in Cyprus, I mean, I would drink so much that so I used to work at a restaurant, for example,
Hmm.
and every night we would just go down the beach and we just buy a bottle of vodka, a bottle of tequila, many beers, whatever, you know.
Yeah,
And we would get so flipping smashed. The next
yeah,
day, I had to get up and go to work. And at the
yeah,
time, because I was young, I could do that. I
yeah.
would wake up all grumpy and hangover, being there in the kitchen cooking. But as the time went by and I involved drugs in it, I had some really, really bad turn downs, you
So,
know?
so what do you mean? As time went by and you got involved in drugs. So let's enter into the drugs. What happened?
Well, for example, when I started mixing cocaine with alcohol,
Yeah,
it would cut all of my senses to an extent
yeah,
that I just end up pissing my pants,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So I call that a massive extreme, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what did cocaine do for you at that time?
Mm. what it does to almost anybody. It makes you feel like a
Yeah.
king. You want to conquer the world. You have no
Yeah.
anxiety whatsoever. You beat yourself in, in the chest. Yeah, let's go get this done, get that done. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so the dopamine levels for me, which I'm hungry of dopamine most of the time,
Yeah. Yeah.
would feed me massively to an extent where in my brain would create me, oh yeah, you can do that and that and that. But the next day I would be just depressed.
So at that time, did you know you had sorry, ADHD?
At the time, no, I didn't. I
So what
didn't.
do you mean about, so people that are listening that don't understand that link between the dopamine,
ADHD.
talk about cocaine. Do you want to
So,
describe that?
so the link between most of amphetamines, Monday, speed, everything that you kind of snort, ecstasy, MDMA, cocaine, all of that, they increase your dopamine level very high. And ADD people suffer from a lack of dopamine. And when that kicks in, you automatically become an addict. It doesn't take you years or months to become an addict. You have that craving immediately right after, and it's a very dangerous pathway to go down, because, if somebody would give you something that you don't have, you'd be happy, innit? And you just want
Yeah,
that more and more and more.
yeah.
So it's a very slippery road, and I wouldn't suggest going
It's
down that road.
it's like instant gratification.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So so you're at a stage and you are drinking a lot of alcohol, you've introduced a lot of cocaine, and then what then? Like what was that turning point? Describe that time when you thought,
When I when
and
I
how old
decide
was it?
when I
Yeah,
decide that I have to stop.
yeah,
So I remember exactly what happened. It was on a Tuesday morning. I went out to see my friend. I don't know, it was like 9, 10 in the morning. I was already drinking. And I ended up taking some coke. It wasn't even about 12 o'clock, and I was smashed, you know. But around 3 o'clock, I made it back home,
yeah.
and I was passing by the mirror of my cupboard, where I'm keeping my clothes,
The wardrobe, yeah,
the wardrobe mirror in my
yeah.
bedroom where I was living back then, and I saw the reflection. I saw my reflection. And then
Ah,
I looked at myself, and man, I didn't like at all what I saw. I was like, oh shit, something needs to change here and now, because I'm not gonna end up anywhere if I, drink, smoke, snort all day long, and I'm in debt all the time. So I looked at myself, and I said I need to change now. And that was a very big
yeah,
turning point in my life when I actually realized that I can't do this anymore, because it was going on for years and it had to
yeah.
stop. And thank God for that day.
So you talked about debt. So
Mm.
how did the debt come into it? So we've done the drugs, we've done the alcohol, and then you just mentioned debt. How did that look?
Well, you see, because I wasn't aware of my ADHD at the time, I had no idea what it's like to go through paralysis states, why I wasn't going to work on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever, and I would miss on so many jobs and opportunities, and I would get fired many times as well. Uh, and include that with some drugs intake where they're expensive, they're not
Mm,
cheap. You can't just knock yourself out for £5. You need to spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And because
yeah,
I didn't have a job and the drugs are expensive, well, guess what? You know, I couldn't
yeah.
meet the two in the middle, and I had to pay the rent, and I had to obviously take care of myself. And I was going down a negative spiral.
Yeah. So I think that's really quite important because at that time you didn't know you were ADHD
Mm,
and you talked about something called paralysis.
mm.
So describe how you felt at that time, what you know now. I mean, for people listening to this, they might feel the same, but they don't know that it's called paralysis.
So it's the moments when you wake up in the morning and you simply cannot move. Your executive function of your prefrontal cortex tells you you have to get up, you have to do this, you gotta either go to work, you gotta take care of your business, you gotta go take your kids to school. Whatever it is that you have to do, your brain knows it. It knows the tasks. But there's another part of your brain which doesn't receive the chemical for you to actually get up and do it. And you feel like you're being pulled back. You just simply can't do it. You know, it's just being held back there. And when that happens and you're unaware of ADHD, comes with a lot of guilt and shame. Because then again, that chattering mind is going to say, you're a lazy bum. Why don't you get up? Oh, because all you do is stay here and sleep all day long. So I've had a lot of negative thinking patterns, which kind of, it didn't help me at all. It just dragged me down more and more and more, you know? So going through all those paralysis states, losing all those jobs, you know, relationships, money, all that, it was quite difficult.
I mean, that must have been really challenging because you didn't know about ADHD. It sounds like you internalized that, like what you said, you know. So you wake up in the morning and you just literally can't move. And you've got the drugs there. So did you know the difference if it was the low from the night before? Because you know the drugs brings you up and then afterwards it
Well,
brings you
yeah,
down.
of course. I was aware of us to a certain extent where, you know, if you take drugs, but especially if you snort things out, you are going to feel depressed the second day, literally depressed, you know, because all that high dopamine intake that your brain created, you kind of feed it all out in one day, the night before, and then the next day you're drained out. You don't have any more to process, to create. So yeah, I was aware to a certain extent.
So let's talk a little bit more about dopamine
Mm.
and chasing. I nearly said, anyway, chasing that dopamine. So describe that. What is dopamine and that circle of wanting it?
Right, so dopamine, you know, our brain creates different kind of chemicals. Dopamine, serotonin. Serotonin, for example, gets activated when you love somebody, when you hug somebody, when you kiss somebody. Yeah, you get that lovely serotonin where you feel good, you feel loved. Then dopamine is the little chemical which helps you take each step, which helps you to be motivated, which helps you to go to work, to go to school, to write, to read, to cook, to go to workout. It's an active motivational chemical. And imagine if you don't have that, you're basically paralyzed. Literally, your body's paralyzed, like a person that's sitting on a wheelchair. It can only talk or think, but it can actually move the legs. And that's a similar kind of experience.
Yeah. So I can see that kind of circle. The drink, the alcohol, the drugs, the shame, the paralysis, and then looking for the next dopamine hit to
Mm,
make you feel better again. Wow,
mm,
what a circle.
mm,
So then, like most people, like that's really interesting, you know, when you say that you looked in the mirror physically and you looked at yourself and you didn't like what you see, because
mm.
people talk about looking inwardly, like emotionally. The fact that you saw your reflection in the mirror and you didn't like what you see. So what happened next?
Well, what happens next? I started looking online for improvements. At the time, I discovered motivational speeches on YouTube. You know, people like
Oh,
Les Brown, Tony Robbins, Dr. Eric Thomas, and they were talking things that I would love doing. And they say, go on, pick up a book, just read a book a month or something, and just do something. And I picked up a book that completely changed my life and helped me take the route of personal development, which is the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, which have has taught me the values of life, you know? And that's how I started my little journey, you know? Then I started doing yoga, you know, then I started working out. So,
So, in a nutshell, like, define personal development and why do you believe it's important?
well, I can only use my perspective
Yeah.
and say that I believe that personal development it's important because it helps us evolve, you know? As a human being for the past decades, hundreds of years, thousands of years, we kept on evolving. And how did we kept evolving? Through learning, basically through making a mistake. You first time you put your hand in the fire, you saw it burns. Okay, lesson one. We discover fire, don't put your hand in the fire, you know, and so we moved on gradually. And so I think it's important because personally, I love evolution on all areas of life, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And then that's why I think it's very important because it helps us evolve as human beings.
Why do we want to evolve?
Well, why do I want to evolve? Because I can't see myself as being a, a stone in the ground, on the ground, just stays there and does nothing, you know?
Mm.
I believe that I have a purpose, and that purpose requires me to take actions. Therefore, I choose to evolve.
So when you were younger, what did you think your purpose was?
To be honest with you, I had no purpose.
Yeah.
I had no guidance as a kid. I had the kind of freedom that I was actually talking to a colleague of mine at the club in Toastmasters, where we're talking about having a parent but not having somebody to guide you. So just the
Yeah.
parent that's around you but is not present. So I kind of had the freedom to do whatever I want. Therefore, my boundaries got extended and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know to choose right from wrong. And I did everything. And if you were to ask me, I had no idea what I want up until I was about, I don't know, 25. And then when I was 25, guess what? I I thought that I knew what I want because I was being fed through social media. You know, have the $10 million house, have the Ferraris and the Rovers and the you know, and the
Mm.
sexy wife and
Mm.
the 10 million bank account. And that I was being fed every day through social media. Oh, that's what I want. That's what I want. You know, until I actually discovered through a thorough introspection what I really want. You know.
Yeah. So what are your personal kind of development framework? What does that look like? How do you keep yourself, you know, sane to live in this world with ADHD and all that stuff that you've had to go through? What does your structure look like?
So in an ideal world, what I am trying to accomplish is keeping a structure alive for the rest of my life. And this is something that I'm working towards every day.
Mm.
Like my perfect day would be like this. I wake up at 4 a.m., I
Yeah.
meditate for an hour, I read for an hour, I work out for a couple of hours, then I do some yoga. Then I do a couple of hours working on my personal business till about lunch. I take a nice little break. After lunch again, I take care of my business a couple of hours, you know. Then in the afternoon, I unwind. I spend some time with the family, you know, with the dogs. And towards the end of the nights, you know, I would like to meditate before I go to sleep, and not going to sleep after 10 o'clock. So that's something that I'm aiming for. And there are days and weeks and probably even months when I can keep this up, but then, you know, I come off of it for a little while and then I come back again, you know? So that's what I'm working on right now, to find a way to keep this structure alive for the rest of my life.
So where do the ice baths come into all this? Because you know, I know that you like ice baths. Doesn't make too much
Yeah.
sense to me. But what does it do? What
Okay.
is it?
So ice baths help so many things. God bless Wim Hof. You know, if he ever comes across this podcast, bless your heart, brother. All I've got to say is that uh, ice bath and ADHD, they're like best friends. Because remember, ADHD needs the dopamine, and ice baths is being said to increase your dopamine up to 300%. So yeah, and this on the long term, when you do it regularly, like almost on a daily basis, if you can, you know, if not, that's fine. You see, because I live in the countryside, it's kind of difficult for me to go and buy ice bags in the summer, because by the time I get home, they're gonna be melted. So I kind of keep my structure of ice bathing in the winter, you know? So late autumn, early spring, throughout this 1.5 seasons, I have my nice little barrel outside, and I go and I dip in it every morning almost.
Is it a little bit like taking a snort of coke? That not that I would know,
Yeah.
but is that what the ice bath does? It gives you that. Oh, that
Okay. Yeah. So it's a little bit more than that. Okay. It has a similar kind of effect, but in a much healthier manner. Yeah.
course.
So of course, when you come out of the bath, yeah, you're pumped. You're ready to move up a mountain. You know, you're ready to push the mountains from left to right, no problem. But what that does, it keeps it up throughout the day as well. You know, the cocaine, for example, when it's not, you're up and running for 10, 15 minutes, but then it wears off. Then you gotta do it again, you know? So, and not only that, it helps you with the dopamine, it removes your anxiety. Yeah. It keeps your body fitter, you know? And what else does it do? It just increases your self-worth and your self-esteem as well, you know, because you have accomplished a great thing. So it
Yeah,
changes your mental state, you know, because it's very uncomfortable to go into the ice bath. You're out there like, how your body says, your mind says, oh, what the fuck am I doing here? Let me get out of here. It's ridiculous. What do I need to do this? And by doing so, you're rewiring your brain into understanding that you're okay with being uncomfortable, you know? So that's a big thing for me.
so you know, being uncomfortable, chasing you know, all these wonderful experiences and not wanting to experience anything that's uncomfortable. You put yourself in uncomfortable positions, and like how do you manage that? Because most people, they want alcohol. It's an easier way out to get that dopamine. They want things that makes them comfortable, and it's so how what would you say about
So
that?
I've read this book some years back, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, by a British psychologist, Susan Jeffers, I think. And she was saying in the book something about, in order to rewire your brain again, yeah, to change your beliefs, is
Yeah,
that do that thing that makes you feel uncomfortable. So for example, if you're afraid of public speaking, like, which is one of the greatest fears around the world, yeah, uh,
yeah.
the first thing you need to do is to be up on the stage and be in front of some people, many people if you can, and go through those emotions. Because by doing that, you're actually allowing your brain to understand, process what is happening. So then you know what's going to be your next step. So let's say first time you go up on the stage, you freeze out. You may be sweating, your palms are sweating, you're like, your voice is shaking. Okay, next time you go on, you're gonna be a slightly better. You're gonna be a little bit better. You're gonna probably move from left to right. You're gonna make eye contact with the audience. The third time you go again, you're gonna open up your mouth and say something. And even if your voice is shaky, it's good. So you see, you've already done 2-3 steps to get over it. I imagine if you are to do nothing, that fear is gonna just stay there in you forever.
And it's quite immobilizing. You just kind of stay stuck. And the word keeps coming up to me, instant gratification versus fear and change. Instant gratification, change, and fear.
I mean, it's easy to understand that most people would choose instant gratification. Yeah, you want to get a little ice cream and eat it now. You don't want to wait until you get home and whatever, and you know, eat your
That's me all day long.
eat your healthy meal. Nobody wants to do that. But I think that the key here is to understand that on long term, it's better to drop on the instant gratification because it's unhealthy and unhelpful, and instead choose the longer path, because you're going to live for many, many years. You know, instant gratification may be here now, maybe not be here now, may be here tomorrow. What are you going to do when it's not there? You're going to probably suffer. So if you choose the long way, then, you know, it's going to be a harder way. Yeah, you're going to take step by step. You're going to fall down, fail, but then eventually you'll get back up. And in years to come, guess what? You'll become an expert at whatever you choose to be, whatever you choose to do.
You know, the penny just dropped for me as you were talking about instant gratification and wanting things now and wanting to feel comfortable. Because if, for example, like right now I'm hungry and I want something to eat and I want it now, and I'm
That's
quite
me.
uncomfortable. I'm quite uncomfortable because my belly's rumbling and my brain is telling my belly, you want something to kind of feel better, to feel differently. And then in comes the ice baths, which not many people would want to get into a cold barrel of water. But when you get into that, it's so uncomfortable. It's telling your brain, it's literally rewiring your brain about what's comfortable and what's uncomfortable. And it sounds like you've taken many steps over the years to rewire your brain. Alcohol, the cigarettes, you know, the debt, the drugs, you know, putting boundaries in place, self-love. All that is a rewiring of what you were taught about yourself and what you understood about yourself.
Yeah, so basically, you know, obviously we all grow with a set of beliefs, a set of things that we know, an amount of self-worth or self-esteem. But it's very important to understand that our brain, it's neuroplastic. Therefore, it means that it can change. So you see neurodivergent people, like dyslexic people like yourself, ADHD people like myself, bipolar, and all kinds of neurodivergency, autism, it can be changed in time, yeah, by changing the belief systems. But that is not an easy route. There's no instant gratification. That's something that takes years, you know? And the good thing about it, to be honest with you, see, because if we're neurodivergent, we have a set of superpowers, I like to call. Yeah. You have heightened senses, you know, and some other things. You may be very clever, creating ideas really quick, you know, really quick. You know, most entrepreneurs are neurodivergent and they drop school. Yeah, so they're the clever people of the world, so to speak. You know, no offense to neurotypicals whatsoever. But when you're trying to rewire a neurodivergent brain, you will have that set of superpowers coming with you throughout your life, if it makes sense. So you're gonna be doing just fine.
So, okay, so let's round up now. So if there's somebody listening to this who is stuck,
yeah,
and they want to kind of change the way in which they've been doing things, what would you say to that person?
Can you repeat the question? Do you mean for a person that got ADHD or for anybody?
It's anybody that wants to change something.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulate yourself for wanting to change. Change is one of the hardest things to do. Everybody loves their little comfort zone that's been created, even if that's negative. They love it. It's their little comfort zone there, you know? So congratulations for taking the first step of wanting to change. You know, what I would say, it's allow yourself time and space to make mistakes. Don't be afraid. You know, you will make many. If you don't make any mistakes, guess what? You're still in your comfort zone and you're not stretching, you know? So make as many mistakes as possible, yeah? And allow yourself time and space and be patient, you know? If you've fallen down 10 times, good, fall back another 10 times, but never forget to get up, you know? Get back up. What, you dropped your routine for a year or 2 or 5, you've been an alcoholic for 20 years, for 30 years. So what? I've seen people change after 30 years of rough upbringing, you know? And I had a talk to them. We're actually going at Vipassana. Once he came out, he said, I'm not going to be doing that or that or that or that ever again, you know? So everybody can change and everybody can improve.
What's Vipassana?
Vipassana, it's a meditation camp. It was made by this guy, Goenka, which is actually following Buddha's, what should I call it? Discipline through meditation. So you're going to this camp and there's, I don't know, you're going for 10 days or 20 days or 30 days. You're going to meditate about 10 hours per day, a particular kind of meditation. You're going to follow that. And I don't think I'm allowed to disclose this, you know, so I don't want to talk too much about it.
Too much about it, yeah.
Yeah. So, but basically, yeah, everybody should try that if they're going through any kind of problems in their life, divorce, diseases, money problem, drugs problem, any sort of negative thinking patterns. If they're gonna try Vipassana, they'll come out with a whole different perspective, you know?
So if you had to say, I don't know, let's say 4 things that somebody could include in their life as a way of putting them on that path, because it's a long journey. What you're saying is not going to happen overnight. It could take 30 years, 20 years, 2 years. But this journey of change, so to speak, if you had to name 4 things that will be helpful along that journey, what would you say those 4 helpful things? I know there are many, but name 4.
I think, and I wish somebody would told me this about 10 years ago when I started my journey. It's the most important thing is to find out who you are and what you want. So you have to do a thorough introspection. Drop your phones, drop your laptops, don't go outside. Stay inside your house in a nice, quiet, calm room, switch off the lights, and think about who you are and what you really want. And this might take a couple of hours, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, but you'll eventually get your answer of who you really are and what you really want. And once you realize who you are and what you want, then from there, you can choose how to go around it. So in my case, to give you an example, I'm aiming towards emotional and financial freedom. Yeah, that's my goal. And from there, how am I gonna attain emotional freedom, for example? All right, let's say maybe I'm doing therapy, maybe I'm meditating, maybe I'm reading books, maybe. So I'm gonna create a pathway to achieve my emotional freedom. I will start with the things that I can do first, and then I'll gradually increase it. And then my next bit would be financial freedom. And what can I do to improve my finances? And I'll take it step by step. And so I'll create a clarity in my life, and then I'll start setting up goals, short term, medium term, long term, so I can gain more clarity to be able to move on in life.
Thank you. So the very, very last question, what would you say to the younger version of Adrian?
uh, this gets me a little bit emotional, but I think that actually I would say this thing. You are not the voice in your head, but the one who hears it. So take it easy with the shaming and the blaming and less judging. I would probably say that to my younger self,
Oh, okay. That's a lovely ending. Thank you, Mr. Adrian Vallis. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Stay on the line and I'll end the recording now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.